Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to have you with us for the Making Career Moves Zoom webinar. So MEST has been running a Women's Month this March in celebration of the International Women's Day. And this is just part of the activities that we're doing today. We have amazing women, both parts of the MEST community and the entire tech ecosystem on this call, coming to share their experience with you, how far they've come, the boss moves they are making, and where they are trying to go. So please, you're welcome once again. Feel free to use the chat as we go on. If you have any questions, you can use the reactions as well. You can see it on your screen. So I'd like to pause and invite Melissa.
Hi, good afternoon, morning, evening, depending on where you're joining in from. My name is Melissa Insia, the Director of Portfolio for MEST Africa. I think I'm kind of on the spotlight here, but I'm just really excited to see everyone here on the call. As Abram rightly said, this month has been really important for us here at MEST, especially just because women matter so much to us. We focused on women and wellness. We focused also on financial tips for women earlier in the month. And now we're just moving more into some intimate conversation around career, right? How to make the best career choices and plans, how to shift, right, from one career to another if need be. And as Abnas rightly shared, we have some amazing personalities on the call today. So just in terms of schedule, we'll have a chance to move into the first panel, which will be led by Abna, and I'm sure she'll have a chance to allow each panelist to self-introduce themselves. Then we'll move into a fireside chat and have a little bit of an intimate conversation with a really accomplished young entrepreneur who has done a couple of different things in many different industries, and will talk to us a little bit about her transition from economics to tech. So a lot happening on this call and to look forward to, but I'll just pass it right back over to Abna to get us started with our first panel.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Thank you for laying out the schedule for today. I'm very excited. I've looked at the profile of these ladies, and honestly, they have a wealth of experience that I'm so excited to learn from. But before we get into it, let's start with some introductions. So I'll just ask the three panelists to kindly say their name, their profession, and one fun fact about themselves. I know I've probably put you on the spot with a fun fact. There's a lot of things that you probably want to share, but please just stick it to one. So I'll go first. My name is Abena Opebia Anibudu. I'm a business development associate at MEST Africa. And one fun fact, good one. I actually used to go for ballet classes throughout my primary school life. So I should have been a ballerina, but hey, life happens. So I'll pass it over to Ifwa. Anita can go next. And last but not the least, Adobia. So your name, your profession, and one fun fact about you.
Good afternoon, everybody. Really happy to be on this panel. My name is Efia Odura-Santi. I'm the Director of Compliance at Absa Bank Ghana Limited. A fun fact, I'm the resident chocoholic in the office. I love chocolates.
I love that. I love that. Please share some of your chocolates with us.
Absolutely.
Anita, your name, your profession, and a fun fact.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. How are you? I'm Anita Riafi Esino. I don't know what am I supposed to say, what I do? Don't know where to begin. Okay. So,
maybe just a headline of what you're doing now and a fun fact.
Okay, so I'm an international human capital and organization-driven consultant and an entrepreneur. I run a consultancy called OML Africa, and also founder of Ghana Women in Business and a whole load of other things. I think that's okay. You're in good hands.
I love that. I'm so excited to speak to you about long-term career planning. You're doing so many things, so you have to help us to identify our strengths and how, we can start doing a lot of things as well. So Adobia, over to you. Your name, your profession, and one fun fact, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. Name, Adobia Mensah-Bonsu. Currently the head of product control, which is really a function in finance. So it's not like products that we sell as a bank. And one fun fact about me, I think everybody knows that once you put the music on, my legs just start moving. And I love to dance and I love to listen to music.
I love that. Maybe if we are lucky, we can see you bust some moves later on. Thank you very much, ladies, for sharing amazing, amazing fun facts. One fun fact about all of us on this panel, our name starts with A. I'm not saying too much, but you know what that means. So very excited to have you on board. Anita, the first section would be with you. And we'd just like to learn about long-term career planning. How do you plan an effective career? Can you share a few tips and tricks about that?
Okay, yeah. So basically, career planning is a job in itself, right? You've got to take ownership of your career development. So I always say that you are responsible for managing consciously your career, right? And it really, if it's working with normal steps, it starts from school, right? It starts from the subjects you study, the extracurricular activities you get involved in, and all of that, right? But sometimes it doesn't always go like that, right? Because sometimes too, at school level, we may not be really clear as to where we want to go in terms of our career direction. So sometimes it comes a little bit later at university level, or you may even find you may actually be looking at it when you get your first job, right? But wherever it starts for you, wherever you have that point where it's, I need to plan my career, the process is the same, right? You need to have a plan. You need to give it the time to sit down and really go through the steps. So the first thing is you have to develop a career plan, a personal career development plan. And in this plan, whichever areas of profession you've decided you want to work in, you need to then research those areas, right? To find out, for example, the types of qualifications you need, the types of experience, skills, right? Exposure, etc., that you will need for each career. And if it's possible, you then want to try out as many as you can, right? Through internships, volunteering, with as much as you can. It's not always easy, but it's doable, right? That is very doable. If people don't try, you won't know. A lot of the time, people don't try before they even put it to the side. So you want to try and out as many of it as you can, and you want to do your research. If you get the opportunity to try out, or the information you gather from those careers may guide you to say that, actually, you know what, I think this direction is more in line with what my passions are or what I want to do. In which case now, you should know what qualifications, what training, etc. you should be doing, and you should deliberately be working towards that. All right. Sometimes you may find that you're already in a career, but you've not gained the what we call the knowledge side, maybe a degree, a diploma, or a certification. So now you know that in your plan, you want to gain that to make sure that you're balanced and in line in competition with anybody else in terms of promotion or progression in whichever organization you want to be in. So that's the first thing, your plan and determining where you want to be at. Once you're clear on it, you know what qualifications, experience, and so on. The second part is trying to gain some of those experience. And I think that's where usually the problem is. In our side of the world, in our environment, opportunities aren't as readily available as it is in other spaces. But sometimes people end up taking jobs that are not in their career path. And I will say to you that as an expert, we call something career reasoning. That is what we're using to sift all CVs, right? To do all assessment, your career reasoning. So if you want to be, let's say, an IT specialist, but we look at your CV and all the work you've been doing is plumbing, electrician, that's not career reasoning, right? That's totally off. So you must be very careful. I know. Sometimes you have to make decisions based on circumstance and all of that. But in as far as possible, assuming you had to make a career decision to take a job because of circumstance, right? We all have bills, we've got things to deal with, right? Make sure that at least you are trying to do something aligned with your career reasoning. You see, I try to encourage the people that I mentor in my space that it's only in Ghana where we've kind of training our young people or even our young professionals that they can't do more than one thing at the same time. Outside, someone is going to uni, they are working, they're doing a whole, you know, if you're serious about your career, it means you have to do a bit more than just sit in the comfort zone of one thing at a time, right? You've got to be ready to add the additions to build the skills, because maybe you've had to take this job because you need to take this job, you need funds, right? But you're very much committed to the career path you want to be on, right? So you're doing activities that are extra in order to stay in that career reasoning that I'm saying. In which case, when I see your CV and I see your activity, I see that, okay, she was in the job, but I can see her activities is very much in line with her career path. When we don't see that, I'll have to be very honest, because we want to have honest conversations. CVs are just put somewhere, and it becomes very hard for you, right? And that's why sometimes when you apply, when you now want to transition into maybe an area, maybe you deviated from, it's important to add cover letters to explain the deviation, all right? So that's the second part, gaining the experience and training in the area in as far as possible. And if it's not always direct for us, I've just explained how you go about it, okay? Now, assuming it's going well for you.
I have like so many questions around it. You shared like so many things.
This is the last point. This is the third point. This is the last point, and I'll
right.
pause then you can the question. The third point is that assuming you did go through the path and you are on the line of your careers, what you need to understand is that by default, employers all over the world are not going to support your career development outside of them. No one's going to do that, right? They're going to support your career development within their company, right? So they'll pay for courses, training, on the job, whatever, for development within their company. So any extra skills and experience that you need, you've got to do it in your own time, right? It's very unrealistic for candidates and career, all of us to believe that I work for this company and this company should be supporting my career goals, which has no bearing on what they're doing. They're not going to do it. It's unrealistic. Anyone who's telling you that's true is telling you lies. No company is going to pay for you to develop yourself and go and work for their competitor or someone else. But they will develop you whilst you're with them to progress within the progression within the company. If there isn't a progression, then that's where you know in your plan, you need to determine how much of an experience you need from that company now, and then you need to plan where your next move would be to continue with your progression ladder or architecture, as we sometimes refer to it. I'm going to stop here in case you have questions.
I do have a lot of questions. So what I'm hearing and what I really like is the career reasoning and the intentionality that goes with it. So a lot of times, just as you were saying, a lot of people just pick jobs because that's what is readily available for them, but it's not because it's a strategic decision in helping them get to where they want to get to. So I just want to bring Ifwa into the conversation at this point, because you mentioned that you have transitioned quite a bit in your career journey. So have they all been in the same banking and finance industry? Have you ever done something outside that? And how were you able to navigate that transition?
Thanks a lot, Abna. So interestingly, banking is new to me. I only came into banking 2 years ago. I spent a lot of my time in FMCG, so fast-moving consumer goods, having done some with personal care, Unilever, then went into beverages. Did a little bit of consulting and then have found my way into banking. And what I would say is very much what Anita said. The important thing is to keep growing, to keep learning, to keep investing in yourself. So if you reach a point with the particular company you're with and you realize that either there's nowhere else to go, or you're not getting as much out of it, you're not feeling as fulfilled, you're not growing, you're not expanding, and it's time to start thinking about what next. And so for me, that's been part of the considerations. I think sometimes as well, you need to go fast in your career, especially when you're younger, try different things and get as much experience as you can. Then when you start thinking about settling down, having a family, then it is time to slow down a little bit. So for me, one of those has been the consideration at the time when I decided to move away from FMCG into consulting. I wanted to spend a little bit more time with the family, and the hours were crazy and it just wasn't working. So I think everybody has to determine at whatever point in time their lives are, what is more important. Is it focusing on the career and moving ahead? Or is it possibly taking a bit of a step back and focusing on family? And it shifts. So I did that for a while, and now I'm back into something that's extremely hectic, which is banking. that I've made, the time and invested in the kids at the time when I thought they needed it most. So that's what I would say to everybody on the call, kind of think not just career, but also what's important for you and for your family at different stages of your life. Thank you.
Thank you very much for adding that. Audience, just bear in mind that there'll be a poll that'll be coming up soon, so please look out for it. Adobe, I don't know if you have anything to add before I ask Anita the next question on long-term career planning. Sorry, you're on mute.
Thank you, Abena. So for me, I really resonated with what Anita mentioned about employers developing you for the job, which is true. And so if you have other ambitions other than what you have in your current role, you do need to invest. And I like to draw on a statement that my finance director usually says. He says, why would you give your career to chance? You need to own it. Nobody knows yourself better than you. You can get input from others, but you know what you want, right? Everybody's path looks different. And to Ifea's point, you need to determine what is important for you at the point of your life. And there are seasons in life, and sometimes your priorities may change. So just to leave with the audience that you need to own your career development. It's not your line manager's duty. It is not your supervisor's duty or anybody else's duty, but it's yours to develop and build. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adobe. I love the addition. So I wanted to hop on it. It's very interesting how you touched on it. It's almost like we have some telepathy or something, because I was going to touch on the training and development. A lot of times people also go outside and try and develop themselves further because they feel as though qualifications are needed to be able to get to the next level. Whereas some people say experience is much better. So Anita, what would you say that people should do? Should they rack up their qualifications and the degrees with the hopes of getting something, or should they look out for more experience? And as you touch on it as well, can you share some prompters on when it is time for someone to move or transition into a new job? Sorry, Anita, you're on mute.
I'll touch on the training, then I'll tell you the different ways of movement, okay? Because people don't know, so I'll come to that. The training aspect, right? So we talk about, when you are talking about jobs, classifications, salary, and all of that, we come from the value perspective, right? So when we come from the value of the job perspective in organizations, okay? So you realize that if an organization has set up its L&D, that's the learning and development or training and development, however they've termed it, they should have broken it down into a core, which is about the organizational and skills, experience it requires, and then what we call primary, which is the job related, and then what we call secondary, which is the career or orientated, right? So if we're looking at training needs, right, you must make sure that the training needs is falling within those sectors that I've said. And if you've done your research on the occupation that you want to, you should know which development activities, training or learning that you should be involved in, all right, per the career path you've chosen. A lot of the time, people just decide on training without even doing a proper needs assessment in line with what they're trying to do. So you first need to make sure the training that you're doing is in line. The level of the training you do also depends on the job you do, because some jobs are technical jobs, right? And they require you to have technical competence. So you have to have technical training. So if we take jobs like engineering, right? If you're going to go and work in oil and gas and you're on the rigs, there's a technical aspect on safety. If you're going to be a safety officer, you have to learn, right? It's already a requirement of the profession. So outside of your degree, you will still have to get certified. Do you get what I'm saying? Which may be a training certification. Are you with me? So my point is, the type of training and learning you do is very much related to the job career that you are choosing, okay? And therefore, you must know what that is. Sometimes things, as I always say, don't go as it is. And you may have gained the experience, right? But depending on the organization you're working with, for you to progress, you do require the qualification. So even though we usually place, we usually really place a lot more emphasis on experience, right? The percentage of that height depends on whether that job is a technical or not. So for example, if it's a safety inspector in the oil space, I need that person to have gone through the certification, right? Having experience wouldn't be enough because the certification means you've understood the safety requirements for when you're on the rigs. Are you with me? So there are times where experience may play a higher volume. So all of the training and on the job will be very valid, may even play higher value than a qualification. And there may be times where qualification and certification or specific professional standards may be higher. So if you don't have it, you need to get it, right? Where you sit on that depends on the career that you're going. Are we clear?
We are. I love that. And I'm
Okay.
sure it's been very helpful to a lot of the audience. So before you share the tips and tricks, you were talking about models on transition. I just wanted you to add, when you're responding to that, some of the mistakes that people make when they are career planning. So we can measure that as we wrap up this section.
Okay, so now we've understood that planning and moving our career is a deliberate activity. We've understood why we need to understand our careers and how training and development we should be thinking about it. It's how we move, right? And the movement, if you're in an organization, there are a few factors. If the organization is what we call a flat organization, meaning that it doesn't have a lot of hierarchical levels. So really, you can only move if someone isn't in a position, right? And therefore that limits your ability to move, okay? Now, organizations that are flat usually should also have what we call horizontal movement or career professional movement. And I'll explain the difference. Hierarchical means I'm an assistant manager. Then the manager leaves, right? So I can now move or apply, depending on what the process is internally, to be the manager. If the manager doesn't leave, I can't move, right? So I'm stuck, okay? That's when you're in an organization that is flat. If I'm in an organization that has more levels, branches, regions, global, I may be able to move a bit better, right? So where this happens, the organization may now say, well, we don't have movement going up, but we can do progression horizontally. So they may look at things like career enrichment and enlargement, which is great to a certain extent, meaning that they will add additional responsibilities and experiences to your job to help build your skills and competencies in that area, right? That's the other way. The third way is that even though I can't move up, and yes, you're adding enrichment to my role, professionally each year I'm gaining experience, right? I'm growing in my profession. So then they may now decide that they're going to recognize that move, right? So that when I'm ready to move, I can move to that level that I'm at. Let me explain. If I was the HR administrator, then I moved to the HR officer, but I couldn't move to so I was the HR assistant, then I moved to the HR administrator, but I couldn't move to the HR officer or assistant manager or manager because there was no movement. However, each year I've gained the experience, the qualification and certification as an officer, right? So the company will make sure that they progress me or promote me to officer. Okay, which means if I should move out of that company to another company, I can apply for a job at officer level. All right, I want you to understand something. However, if that doesn't happen and I stay with the job title HR administrator, then you come and apply to career reason that I am applying for HR officer. Because we know what an administrator and officer should do, will be like, no, you are not qualified. Meanwhile, you are applying because you know you do qualify. So it's also important to make sure that job titles, right, and job change. Are you understanding me? Otherwise, when you are on the, you know what's happened. You know you gain 3 years, you're an officer level. I don't know that. I just see job titles. Job titles are very powerful and important. Are you getting me? Because we can't make any inferences when we see CVs. I cannot make any assumptions about Abena. I don't know her, right? Out of hundreds of CVs. So it's your responsibility to make sure that if I can't go up, and yes, it's lovely to have enrichment, but really what I want is acknowledgement of my career growth within my role. which means my job change and responsibilities must change so I can update my CV. Are you with me? Now, if I now come to a ceiling that I cannot move, now, you know, anybody who goes into, no employer who knows what they're about is expecting you to spend the rest of your life with them. And I think if you do, I don't know, right? At some point, you have to move on. And moving must be strategic. Some people, you know, when you first enter your career, you have to be patient. All of us, we have to learn, we have to work. I am good at what I'm doing and what I do, and I can say it because I have taken the patience to learn my trade, right? And you must have the patience to learn. When you have your trade and you've learned your career, the salaries, benefits chase you, right? As I sit here, I can negotiate and come out whatever salary I wish to for whoever wishes to employ me. Although I don't wish to be employed, just that way, right? I enjoy being a consultant. But if I decided today I wanted to be employed, I have no anxiety over my negotiations. Why? Because I know what I'm about, because I have deliberately managed my career and I was patient to learn my trade. So what I'm saying is that when you're moving, yes, do think about your salary and you have to do the maths. People don't do maths. They just start picking figures. Sit down, analyze, this is my cost of living, right? My rent, my whatever, do it. And then this is what I want to save, because you should be thinking about saving. And this is what I want to have as a, and then this is what I would like to have as on top. So you should come up with a figure. Please stop reading social media telling you, oh, the employer should just tell me the salary. It doesn't work like that. They will ask you, what's your salary expectation? And there are some recruiters where when you start with all that stuff, they won't say anything. They're just going to, because you should walk into an interview knowing what your worth is. If you don't know, research it, be clear, and be able to give your salary range, knowing that whatever minimum you state is what you know will cover whatever is good for you, and whatever maximum you put, you know, this is what's going to be perfect for me. Stop trying to second guess what the employer is going to offer you. If they offer you less than what you're expecting, turn them down, finish. If they offer you what you know is acceptable within your range, you accept it, stop it. Because some of you are losing opportunity because of this salary. I keep seeing your LinkedIn all over, and I'm like, oh God, people should stop it. Prepare your salary. It's part of maturity in managing your career. Do you get what I'm saying? That's also part. That was just, by the way, advice. You need to do that. So when you are clear on how you move, if you can't move high, and maybe you've moved the career way I've told you from officer, but now really it's just time to leave this organization. You've done all you can. There's no challenge. You know, there's nowhere else you can go. It's okay. But be strategic in your next move. It is no point moving from officer to an officer role. I don't understand why people do this, right? You want to try and move into a higher role. Chances are you've gained enough experience to move to the next level of the role you're in, right? And if you're going to move to a role that is equal to where you are, make sure that there is progression in that organization. So you can, when they ask you, do you have any questions? That will be the question you ask. Always ask, what is the learning? What is the progression? Because you're consciously planning your career. Okay, those questions are perfectly acceptable because it even makes us feel like, okay, this person is thinking of going somewhere, right? Are you with me? So I'll stop here.
You've shared so much, Anita. I'm sure the audience have questions as well. So I just want to encourage them to either use the chat or the Q&A feature that they have, and then we will take it at the end of this section. So you spoke about patience, being able to learn and maximize the opportunity that has been given before we move. So I'd just like to switch over to Ifwa now. How did you feel? You've transitioned a lot. How was the fresh start for you? Was it the same experience so far? How were you able to seamlessly transition and excel at the job that you were doing?
So I think the first time is always the hardest time because you're super nervous. You're leaving your comfort zone where everybody knows you, you're a performer, and you're going somewhere and it's totally the unknown. And for me, that first move was to a director level from having been a head of department. And so not only do you have to know your stuff in the department, but you also have to contribute to the wider business and be a leader. So I did the homework, you know, ensuring that I knew exactly what the company was about, what the leadership style was, etc. So at least going in the first day, I had that, and that really helped to give me the confidence that I needed to. when you're moving, you also have to be conscious of the organization you're going into. If it's a different one from what you've been doing, take the time to understand the products, you know, what their values are, what even just the dynamics are. So when you go in, don't look to change things, seek to understand first. So if anybody's thinking of a career move, I think that's super important, because everybody's watching you and they're expecting to see whether one of those is going to come in and start triggering things, or you're going to take your time to actually understand. And I think you do a lot better when you go and understand what it goes on, how things are done before you begin to make any changes. So for me, yeah, the first one was nervous, but excited at the same time. And then after that, again, then it became very much, what can I get out of being here? What are the skills I can get? What else is available in the organization? And luckily I had done local jobs. So I was looking for a regional one and an opportunity came for that. So again, I would say even within the same organization, it is possible to make moves that are not necessarily lateral or horizontal, but also take you outside. So again, in all of that, it's just really taking the time to prepare and taking the time to also be clear on what you're looking for. So I wanted that regional experience, but I'm also conscious that not everybody wants that or can do that because of family circumstances. So really, whenever you're making a move, it's important to think 360. It's not just about the job and the wonderful money and the perks that come with it, but also the impact that it will have on yourself as a person and also on the family. And again, back to, and where will it take you thereafter? You know, so that's what I would share to everybody on this today's session. But I think super important though is don't stay too long in one. Even if it's the same organization, do try and get the experiences, especially when you're younger and have that freedom and can take the risks, you know, with your career, because it helps to build the experience, makes you a much richer person, and it sets you up for a variety of roles. So, you know, I've been able to move from a legal role into the compliance role that I do currently, because I was open to learning and taking on challenges, and again, being willing to explore something new. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'm tempted to digress, and I think I will for just a little bit. I know I'm supposed to ask you about resuming work from a long leave, whether it's annual or maternity, but I wanted to ask, as you are looking for new organizations or people to work for, what are some of the things that stand out to you? Is it the package? Is it the values of the organization? What is it that makes you want to work for a particular organization?
Thanks. So I think for me, the first thing is what the organization stands for and their values, because you can get a fantastic package if they're not a good company that has a good reputation, or they're not people who value employees and have integrity. Then yes, you may get all of that, but you won't enjoy the experience. You won't enjoy the working environment, and you may end up in a very toxic environment and think I should just have stayed where I was. So for me, absolutely, that's the one thing I do ensure that I research into before making that move, because you're moving into the unknown. You might as well go to somewhere where it is better than where you were. So for me, what the organization stands for, their values, and basically a little bit about the work environment. Second thing is absolutely package is important. If they're not paying you more, why move? You're comfortable where you are, you're known, you're performing. So that is important. And then thirdly, though, what are the opportunities? What are the prospects? For me, growth is very important. So if I'm going somewhere where there doesn't seem to be anything else, then I also wouldn't make the move. So those are the three things that I definitely look out for when I'm making a move. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I think we would go back to resuming work from a long leave, and we can look at whether it's an annual leave or maternity leave. So I had a conversation with a lawyer maybe a month or two ago, and she had 3 kids in about 4 years. And she said, going back to work, going into court, she had to cross-examine someone, and she forgot how to cross-examine. Like it was difficult for her. So I want to ask, have you ever taken a long break like that? When you resumed work, did you feel like you had forgotten your job? And if yes, how were you able to remind yourself about the job that you used to do so well?
So yes, I've taken maternity leave. I've never actually stopped work completely and taken like a career break, but I have gone on maternity leave. And yeah, it is, again, I won't sugarcoat it. For me, it was not a glamorous thing to come back. It was extremely difficult, you know, leaving this baby at home and suddenly you're hoping that the carer will look after the baby well while you're not there. So I think what I did a month before was to prepare, ensure that I had stocked up on the basics, the diapers, the wipes, the supplements and all of that, then gotten the help, so made sure that I had a carer in and had made sure that baby was also comfortable with the carer so that at least if I'm not there, I'm comfortable and then I then got the additional as well. So my aunt kindly, came and stayed for the first 3 months while I started work. But at least I had the comfort of somebody I know and I'm comfortable with, as well as a carer. Then in terms of the workplace as well, I kept in touch. So I didn't completely switch off. So if there were things that were going on, a couple of seminars, etc., I'd join in just to keep the brain going, because otherwise you're doing a lot of, oh, coochie, and then you may forget all the other stuff. So I think that is important. And then as well, I think just making sure that you almost do a test run the week before. I simulated it, actually left the house. I didn't go to work, but left and went somewhere and spent the day and then came back just to see how baby coped, how everything went without me in the picture. And so all of that really helped. But coming back into work then was just not putting too much pressure on myself, because it's going to be tough. You're transitioning from having all the time just focusing on baby and family to now having to do both. And it's very easy, either to get really stuck in work and forget that it's 3 o'clock, I've got to go home and sort out baby, or the other way around, especially in the morning. So it's really about knowing that you will have challenges the first month back in. For me, what really helped was having lists. Because again, if I didn't have a list and a to-do list, I would forget maybe I was supposed to do this, etc. And then just checking things off as I went along. And then just diarizing. So Outlook, very helpful. Time to go home, call in at 12 o'clock and check that everything's okay at home. Now I've got this meeting, I've got to make sure I've got to prepare ahead. So use the tools that are available, Outlook, calendar to schedule things in. But most important of all, have a good set of friends you can vent to. There are times when it will all become super overwhelming and you just need someone you can talk to or just vent to or get experiences from about how they're coping or how they coped when they came back into the workforce after, being off for some time on maternity or, yeah. So
I love that. Thank you very much for sharing. So my key takeaway is don't fully unplug. As much as you're tempted to just switch everything off and focus on your new bundle of joy, or maybe you've gone on holiday, you want to enjoy the new environment, still try and keep in touch with work or with key people so that when you come back, you don't feel like you don't know anything anymore. You can also stimulate the brain activity. So I'll just pause. I want to hear from Adobia. I haven't heard from her in a bit. So first, to ask if you have anything to add on resuming work after a career break. And the next question really is about the work-life balance. You want to chill, you want to relax, you want to unplug for mental health. Now, these days, is mental health first before anything else. So if people don't want to get too stressed, that's hashtag soft life and all of that. So what would be your advice on maintaining a healthy work-life balance? And also, how have you felt when you resumed work from a break or leave?
Hi, Abna. So to your point about returning to work after maternity leave, I've done the cycle 3 times. It can be quite jarring, but for me, I believe that you need a great support network at home and also in the office. You need to have a line manager, colleagues who are supportive of you, because your life has gone through changes, you're transitioning. There may be times that you'd want to take on extra tasks or activities, but the situation may not allow you to do so, right? And you need to be patient with yourself. It's a time and a season and you'll get through it. So you just need the support of both your home system and your work system to make sure that both are working to make you succeed. Without these, it will be a struggle. You'll put pressure on yourself and you won't be as productive. So that's what I just wanted to add to that. The other question on work-life balance is a funny one. Is there a balance? You know, work-life balance makes you think about a skill, you know, where everything is all in equilibrium, but it really doesn't work like that. I think most of us, when we started out here, work-life balance, we are thinking there's this perfect equilibrium where I have work in equal measure and, you know, social or non-work activities in equal measure. But you find that the skill tips, depending again on where you are at in your career journey, in your life. And I believe now with remote working, we've sort of digressed from work-life balance to work-life integration, where your personal and your professional, you know, responsibilities are almost blended. So for example, in the workday, I can now say, okay, 3 o'clock, go pick up the kids, maybe supervise extracurricular activities, and then catch up on work later. So far as you don't have any deadlines. Obviously, if there are deadlines, that's not something you can compromise on, but it allows you to be flexible with certain things, you know. And also the danger is a double-edged sword, right? Because you don't put in place barriers. You find yourself working overtime, or because now I know I can catch up on work, you spend your time doing other things, and then now you're falling behind on work and you play catch up and can put yourself under pressure. So for me, how do I keep myself balanced? You make time for the things that are important to you. And I realized a couple of years ago that if I'm not too careful, my life would be work, the kids home, and then work, you know, this repetitive cycle. So I've committed to certain activities. I'm a member of Rotary, requires weekly participation in meetings or some sort of engagement. I make time for DIYs. I like DIYs. I can spend time in the evenings doing pattern drafting, you know, so those things keep me rejuvenated and energized. And I think ultimately it impacts on my productivity at work, right? So I'm not as tired, or I step away and I have a fresh perspective coming back into work. So essentially make time for what's important. If it's a catch up with some girlfriends after work, during the work day, I think that's also fun. You know, you can schedule for a fortnight catch up, and then it keeps you connected to your relationships.
Thanks for sharing, Adubia. I really like that. So how do you keep work separate from life? I remember when this whole remote working came, there was a survey that came out that said that people are now working longer hours because they feel like they have 24 hours to finish that. And so they then, they started working longer hours and other aspects of their life was suffering. Even though we don't expect it to be in equilibrium, you still need to have time for yourself and the things that are most important to you. So is there a way to separate it? If not, or if yes, how?
So it speaks to boundaries, and the boundary setting is not just a one-way stream, setting boundaries for your work colleagues or boundaries for work, because sometimes you will not be available, but you're getting these requests coming through and expecting that maybe you attend to them, right? But it's also your personal boundaries. You may be a workaholic, or you think, oh, I just need to get this little thing done. And before you realize, you are down a rabbit hole of several tasks, you know, that could take you hours. So there are boundaries that you need to set, both for work and then also for your person, you know, because again, if you make time for the things that matter to you, then you're able to manage your boundaries better. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but boundary setting is important. And sometimes those boundaries can't get crossed, but you need to understand why you're doing it and whether there's a valid reason. Insofar as not a repetitive, you know, action where you're constantly breaking your boundaries, then that's not working. So you just need to review your lifestyle, set your boundaries, what will work for you, and then also to your health, Abna. It's not very healthy to be in this cycle of working, and it's very tempting because you have it up, the system available, you're remotely enabled. It's very tempting to want to catch up, be productive, you're targeting the next promotion, you think, you know, you need to increase your output, but think about your health. You have life after work. By God's grace, we'll all reach pension, and there's life after. You want to be able to be healthy, so you don't spend money on medical bills, during the period of your pension, right? So you want to be healthy and enjoy your pension and enjoy life after work. So that's another consideration.
I love that, Adobe. I think we have telepathy, honestly, because my next question is true. Because my next question was going to be around how do you stay sane during the goal-getting period? You know, typically as women, especially, we are goal-getters. We have high ambitions. We have goals that we want to reach. And sometimes, or lots of times, we're too hard on ourselves. We don't know how to pause and applaud ourselves for how far we've come. We don't know how to pat ourselves on the back, or sometimes just encourage ourselves and say that, you know what, this is what you set out to do. You were not able to achieve it. Now let's reflect and see how we can go for it. So you can almost pull your hair out. Your mental health can go down. It's a lot of things. So I just wanted to ask, and then I'll open up to questions from the audience as well. So if you have any questions, please use the Q&A and we'll come to it in a bit. So how do you then stay sane during that goal-getting period? Because I know I need it.
I wanted to, before I make a comment on, I wanted to just highlight a few things from the last session. When Ifwa ended, she made a point of saying, you know, you should move out, right? And it was like healthy movement. So I just, sometimes people don't know what healthy movement is, and you should know. So meaning that what is the duration that is seen as healthy? So at least in a row for like 3 years is a healthy time to move, right? We have something we call hoppers and free agents. They are the people who are spending 6 months, 12 months. You see it on the CV. We call them hoppers. No employer is going to see hoppers and employ you because it shows that you don't have the same power, or either you're not clear where you're going, either you're being driven by money, or so it means the next person that comes in says something, you're going to move. So be very aware of your staying power. If you have problems in the workplace, learn to deal with them. Resigning at every single workplace will not change anything. The higher up you go, you meet the same problem. Learn to face those problems and build some stability in your career before you move. If you keep moving 6 months, 8 months, this one is paying me 50 cedis more, this is hopping, you will see it takes you longer, it becomes a problem. So that's the first thing. Healthy movement, 3 years is okay. If you stay 5 to 10 years, all we want to see is that you progressed within that time. But to start as an officer and 5 years later, you're still an officer is a problem. I'm just giving you a reality, right? So you need to remember what I said. Even though I'm there, let me move my title and position so that it shows that I'm progressing. Very important. The other point was around when you're when you're pregnant or maternity during that period, right? And all of us sitting here, well, some of, I don't know, my other panelists were moms, right? I know that one of the reasons that I moved into consulting a little bit quicker than I wanted was because I had my first daughter and I was working in very high roles. And even though they said they understood, I was still getting home 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I just felt like this is stressful. This is stressing me out. I'm not getting to have the balance. Those times, balance isn't as it is now. So I had to make a decision. Either I stay and be doing this, right? Or I go into consulting where I can have more flexibility. So actually that pushed me a little bit earlier than I had anticipated. But for the purpose of, from the HR perspective, when you are on maternity, right, the kinds of activities, in addition to what Ifwa and Adbia have mentioned, is that it's very important to do the check-ins, right? Check-ins. It's important to stay on the company mailing lists, what do you call it? WhatsApp group or Slack or whatever platform they're using. It's important to stay so you can stay on it, so you can see what is happening in the company. Do take time to kind of read it, even if it's once a week. It's also important to make sure that your team meeting, maybe the company-wide, you're seeing it in the main company platform, WhatsApp, whatever, but your team meeting, is important to ask your line managers to kind of share the notes with you so you keep track of what is happening in your team, right? That's all part of keeping in touch with what is going on. So when you return, it's not such a big deal or so far because you've been keeping in touch. It's also important to keep up with what the trends are, what things are changing in your chosen career. Right? What is changing in that aspect? Because maybe you've decided to take maternity plus maybe a whole year off, right? You don't want to just not be keeping activity. And yes, we want to spend time with baby, and that's very important. But baby does sleep, right? baby, that's go to daddy, baby goes somewhere, right? So you can make sure you're reading, attending webinars, etc., just to keep your knowledge up and to keep your mind ticking over, right? The other one I wanted to also say is that sometimes, if it's possible, people also do like periodic visits to the organization just to say hi and, you know, just to have presence. That's also important, okay? But some of these, if you can even do just 2, it keeps you in touch, all right? Now, on the issue of balance, you know, from us, from the HR perspective or as an organizational psychologist perspective, balance is just like we are talking about your career. It's a deliberate activity. And balance is made up of a whole load of factors that requires you to determine and then be disciplined to make it happen, all right? So when we talk about work-life balance in the workplace, we mean that you should be able to manage your workload within the time specified each day, right? Whether it's 8 hours, 6 hours, whatever, that's what we mean. You should be able to take leave. You know what I mean by leave? Annual leave, holiday, right? To switch off or to do whatever you want to do, right? You should be able to finish work on time, within reason, right? So if we're saying 9 to 5, we're expecting you to finish work at 5. However, there are some cultures, that's another debate for another topic, who, when you're leaving at 5, it's like, hey, are you going home? Hey, it's just 5. And you have to sit there till 9 or 10 being unproductive. Please, if you work in that environment, that's another topic for another day, but you need to address it. Nobody ensures any productivity after 5 or 6 o'clock. People are tired and they are switching on. And that means if you're a company and you're also forcing people to do that, you're entertaining a bad culture. People need to go home, right? I always say, if people will say, I can't take leave, let's say, God forbid, you died, they'll find a replacement. The business will not collapse. Are you getting me? Work-life balance requires you to be disciplined, right? In making sure you're in the workplace, like the examples I've just given, you are exercising them. And it says life. Life means both work life and then private life. So if you know what your routines are in your private life, you should be able to separate the 2 things. For me, I run a very hefty schedule. My days are very busy. As Abna will tell you how she suffered in trying to communicate with me, right? Because Monday to Friday, I work hard. Saturday, you may even WhatsApp me. You may not even hear from me to the next whatever. I switch off. Because if I didn't switch off, my brain will melt down. And initially when I got into my career, I wasn't doing that. I was working 7 days a week, long hours and all of that. Then I said to myself, today, if you die, will you get a medal for this? And I answered to myself, no, I won't. So I had to now discipline myself to say that even though you're busy, you're not the only consultant in the world. Everybody's busy. Sort yourself out. So I did. Monday to Friday, for your information, any of you who's thinking of connecting and messaging me, so you know, so you don't say, Madam, and Anissa didn't even bother to respond. I will not respond to you on a Saturday or Sunday. I won't. Monday to Friday, you get a response. And that has not come easy, by the way. I didn't just get up and say that to myself, and then next minute I was acting in it. I had to progressively get there. But now I am there. In fact, for me to pick something to do with work, especially consulting on a Saturday, is very hard. Right? Because I want to go and do the things I want to go and do. So what I'm saying is work-life balance is a deliberate activity that I don't think there's a perfect moment or an event or an arrival. You are constantly moving in it, but you have to be consciously aware that that's what you want. And you have to be moving until you get to that place where, you know, it's relatively okay. Are you getting me?
Yes.
In short, from my personal experience.
Thank you very much, Anita. We'll take that as your final comments. Adobia, can you just answer the question quickly on staying sane during the goal-getting period? And then if you have any final comments as well, in the interest of time, maybe you can wrap it up in a minute. Is that possible? And if not, I would come back to you. Sorry, you're on mute, Adobia.
Right enough. Abna, thanks. So staying sane during goal getting, when the pressure piles up. For me, I'm a Christian, so I meditate on scriptures to keep me going, give me hope, because whatever happens, you know that it will pass. And one thing you are certain of is time will pass. At the end of that period, Will you have something positive to show for it, or will you be down in the doldrums and not have the results that you want, right? And you want to come out on the better side of it. So that keeps me going. The other thing I do is I have a trusted network of friends, colleagues that I speak to. If we're talking about being able to speak to people, just to let your head down, let off steam, get perspective. You know, sometimes you're not using the right lens to look at whatever challenge you have or whatever you're trying to do. There may be a better way. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. So perspective is important while you're in the goal setting period. And then some people to make you laugh, you know, and just bring the temperature down a bit. So I find that those are quite helpful during goal getting period for me. And just the last words, I would like to, and we do strategies, right, for companies. I think Anita spoke to that. You have a strategy session, you contribute to it. They call you for strategy meetings. You go, you sit there, you think, what's that thing? Brainstorming, bring the pink notes, and you're doing all these ideas. We do that for the companies that we work for. But somehow we are not able to do same for ourselves as consistently. So we start and we hit a break and then we stop, or we have to make a detour with like maternity, you come back, things are not moving as you want them to, or something happens along your career path, like taking a job just because that's available and you're in a certain circumstance. But it's important that you do the planning also for yourself, your personal strategy. And that's one way that you can look at planning your career effectively. So if you don't put in the work to strategize, it's not going to happen. And you need to own that. You know, when you're not doing that, you need to know that, okay, this is a time and season that I want to step back, and these are things I want to observe in this period, and I'll come back stronger, or these are the plans that I'll make once I'm up to it. So that's what I'd like to leave us with.
Thank you. If there's a question for you. Sorry, we won't be able to go through all the questions in the interest of time. We can share the contact details for the ladies we have on the panel in case you want to connect with them. Their LinkedIn profiles would be shared in the chat shortly, and then you can reach out to them. But Ifwa, did you experience any setbacks in your new role when you first started? And if you did, can you share the experience and how you managed this challenge?
Okay, so absolutely. I think it would be lovely to say I've had a rosy career all through, but yes, I've had setbacks. I think being honest, in my current role, as I said, I'm moving from legal into compliance. One of the things that as part of the role you have to do is also to engage externally with stakeholders, etc. When you're a lawyer, you're more focused on the internal and the documents, etc. And I'm not necessarily a very outward person. I'm more introverted. So that was a huge thing. I had to mentally get myself into the fact that I've got to go out there more, network more, socialize more. And it wasn't easy because it's not my strength. So that was a huge thing. But I was also then clear that it's part of the role. So I've got to get into that. So something that is still a process and a journey. But the important thing is when you recognize that that's important for the role, then you've got to make the effort to get there. Don't just look at it as a blocker and then say, I can't and therefore I won't try, is what I would say. But yes, everybody goes through setbacks in their careers. It's how you deal with them that's the important thing, and just see it as another challenge that you have to overcome.
I love that. Thank you so much. There's also another question around how to connect with people in a new working environment if you don't know anyone. I'd say as part of your research, you can go on LinkedIn and try and find certain people that work within that organization, contact them, and then you can get some more information that won't be published on any websites. Yes, this session is going to be recorded. I've seen a lot of people, well, someone is congratulating us for a successful session and is asking for the recording to be shared later. So please look out from the community for the recording for that. We're going on a break shortly. We would have some more of the poll during that session, and we're also going to announce the results during that time. So please sit tight as we go through, and we are coming back with an exciting fireside chat. Thank you all. Thank you, amazing ladies, for joining us on this session. I really enjoyed chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to delve deeper in the conversation sometime soon. Thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so the first question, which of these career goals matter to you the most? It looks like a lot of people are concerned about making an impact, which is really, really great. A lot of people are looking, a lot of organizations are even switching towards the social impact bit. So you would definitely be able to be matched with some good organizations. Next poll results. Okay, thank you all. I'd like to pass it to Melissa. Oh, sorry.
I don't mind leading the poll. Abena, do you want me to take over from here?
Yes, I thought we were going into the fireside chat, and then I see that there are polls, so I'll leave it to you to just take us through the polls and then the next session as well. Thank you, Melissa.
Okay, thanks so much, Abena, and thanks so much to the panelists. That was so enjoyable. Like, I had to quickly wrap up my note taking and get ready for my next session, but that was really great, Abena. Thanks for just being so engaging as always. This has been really good. Glad to see everybody on the call. There's a great audience. The poll, unfortunately, when you're a panelist, you're not allowed to actually do the poll, and I can't see the poll right now. So let's move forward. Please do leave your responses in the poll and we'll share the results while we're on the call, because I think it's really interesting to kind of see how similar we are. When I saw the first poll come up, I was really interested to see how many people chose impact over money. So yeah, really interesting. But I have the pleasure today of being here with you all. My name is Melissa Nsia. I'm the Director of Portfolio for MEST Africa. And I'm thrilled to lead the fireside chat today. And we're just going to be having an intimate discussion around life and career experiences. And to join us, we have Karis Kumaji, who is a UX researcher with Bloop Global, and she'll tell us a little bit more all about that in a moment. Karis, I just want to make sure you can hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Thanks so much again for joining us today. We're really thrilled to engage with you.
Thank you for the opportunity. Happy to be here.
Great. So just to get us started, just tell us a little bit about yourself, Karis. I know I did mention your title, but just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, and a fun fact. I'll steal that from Abena. A fun fact about yourself that not a lot of people know.
All right. Thank you so much, Melissa. So I'm Karis Kumaji, and aside the UX research I actually do quite a lot of other things. So it's just one aspect of it. I'm also a developer as well, and I run operations as well with Blue Global. And I also work with a sister brand which is called Loudspeaker. So a fun fact, I actually love doing nothing as a hobby, if that is weird. But so for me, that is my hobby, doing nothing, because after all is said and done and after all the stress, I actually just want to look into the sky and just know and feel like, you know, there is actually nothing to do. So
There's nothing more to do.
I hope that's not too weird.
No, I think we actually would love some tips on how to do that more, right? If you've achieved that goal, I'm sure many of us on this call would love to achieve that goal as well. And it seems like you wear several different hats, Karis. Congratulations. I think you're the woman that our panelists were talking about who just do a couple of different things. I know Anita spoke about that. But where I want to start the conversation, Karis, is just tell us a little bit about your upbringing, right? How did you grow up?
So I was born right here in Accra in Ghana. I'm aware. And I'm a single child. I was raised by my grandma. I'm an orphan. I lost my parents at an early age. But I was raised by my grandma and my uncles and my aunties as well. And I attended, regular primary school. I went to Wesley Girls High School. And from there, I went to University of Ghana and studied economics. Growing up, I've actually always had the inclination of being more, doing more. It wasn't enough for me to just go through the system and just check the boxes, go to school, do your first degree, do your master's. It wasn't enough for me. I felt like there had to be more. And one thing that I kept realizing was that we weren't made to just go through a system or just wear one hat or do one thing. We're made to be more and be, just broaden our scope on different things. And I decided to test it out and see, and I'm realizing that it's actually possible to put yourself out there and do more than you're capable of doing, and not just box yourself into, one terrain and say, oh, hey, I'm going to do just this thing, and then that's where you're going to be for the rest of your life. I feel like we're capable of so much more. Yeah.
But let me ask you this. What did you dream of being when you were a little girl? Did you always have this mindset of, I just want to just do a bunch of different things? Or was there a point in your life where there was a shift?
Okay, so funny enough, at some point I wanted to be an astronaut. At some point I wanted to be a doctor. At some point, there were so many things I wanted to do at different points of my life, but I actually didn't ever think that I would be able to manage different things or run a business or work with a business and actually see myself going through that stage. And I think it just comes from different aspects of my life that has shaped me into being who I am currently. Yeah.
Good. So let's talk a little bit about that. You did mention that you studied at Legon. Can I ask what you studied?
I studied economics and minored in geography.
Okay, interesting. But currently, a lot of the work you tend to do seems to be focused around the tech and digital space. Is that correct?
Yes, that's true. That's correct.
Yeah, I think we just love to hear a little bit about that, like that transition. Why economics, right? And then how did that transition go? Just tell us a little bit about your early career.
Okay, so then in high school, I studied economics and advanced math, selective math, and then did geography and economics. And right from high school, I went to the university and studied economics again. But after that, I've always had this, creative eye to do things. I could draw, I could design. I think back of the day, there wasn't anything like, computer design. There was more, hand drawings and things like that. So when I went to high school and I finished, in school, I used to work part-time with a company called Echo House, their marketing agency. And back then they were, really small, now starting out. And so I was with them when they had their old office back at Jolu. I was an administrator there trying to, just learn a few things. I was excited about the whole, joy of being able to do something. And then when I was there, I learned a lot because then I didn't just do admin. I found myself in finance as well. And then I tried to study how to design because I had a creative eye. And then I actually sat with the graphic designer in the company and I said, hey, you know what? I like what you do. I want to be able to do that. Can you teach me? And he says, oh yeah, why not? And so I used to sit after work hours, I just spend an hour or two, he teaches me the basics. I go back home and go and try and practice, how to do it. And then eventually I started, managing internal accounts and social media accounts, how to design and things like that. And I actually, progressed really fast with designing because I already had that, creative mindset right there. And so I learned how to use Photoshop, learned how to use Illustrator. But then right after, after a couple of years, after 2 years, I left Echo and I tried to
stop before you left Echo. So wait, you were in the econ department, but in your free time, when you went home at night, rest time is when you pretty much honed your design skills and started managing the social media for the business?
Yeah, so I used to work
the same organization.
Yes. So I used to work, I used to do distance learning. And so right after I had some time on my hands. And then once I go to work, I do my duties. I close maybe by 3 or 4, I'm out of the office. When I get home, I actually do practice. I learn Photoshop, I learn Illustrator. And then with design, it's not something that it's not theory. You don't read, it's actually practice. So you need to put yourself in that position where you look at a particular design and try and mimic it or improve upon it. And then I send it out. But after that, I realized that, what I wanted to improve upon, either design or video, animation, all those things, but I wasn't able to fulfill its entirety. I think when I got to the point where I realized that I was okay, and then I transitioned into other things, other aspects. But then what that did for me was that it enabled me to be able to manage accounts better because then I began to understand the creative level of the client. Now, I didn't just manage internal accounts. I was actually given an external account to manage. At some point I was managing the adjustment of accounts. And at some points, I was helping with Vodafone X. When Vodafone X came out, fairly new, when they were really releasing the 050 numbers, at some points, there was an activation at that point, internal campaigns, and running budgets, social media campaigns here and there. And so it taught me a lot of things. And for that, I'm really glad I was able to grasp that kind of experience from there before transitioning into other things.
Great. So as you're moving on to Echo, where did you go from there? And was that more, was that position more focused on design, since that seems like that's where your passion is?
Okay. So after Echo, I actually was contemplating whether to go do national service or run a business. I always wanted to.
Can we hear us okay? Team, can we hear me okay?
Yes, no, we can hear you. I think the glitch is
We
from
lost Karis, is frozen for just a minute. Let's
Karis,
give her
yeah.
a second to reboot. While we're doing that, we will go ahead and just launch the second poll once again. So if we can have that up, I think a couple of people were really excited to answer that poll. So we'll post that up and we'll continue with the conversation with Karis. Karis, hi dear. I think we lost you for just a second when you started telling us a little bit about when you left Echo, what happened next.
Okay, sorry about the interruption. So then right after that, I was contemplating as to whether to begin or start my business or do national service. And so I decided to start a business. I didn't know how to go about it. But one thing that helped me was that I met some people, some valuable people along the way that actually guided me towards that. It was a battle, trust me, it was a battle with my parents. It was a battle with my family as to, whether to begin a business right after school or go do my master's or, go work in some big firm. But I knew I had a dream of wanting to do something for myself, which I know it wasn't easy. And trust me, if anybody asks me if running a business is easy, it's really hard. It's extremely, extremely hard. But I'm glad I did that currently. And so then I registered my business, and I actually decided to register my business and did my national service with the business I registered, if that makes any sense.
What was the business? Don't keep us in too much suspense. What was the business?
All right. So the business is called Loudspeaker Digital.
Loudspeaker. And it's still running today, right? Because I heard you talk about it.
Yes, it's still running today.
So what does
Yes.
Loudspeaker Digital do?
So Loudspeaker Digital focuses on creative intelligence. So then we look at market segmentation. If people want to enter the market, you understand the market, you go through a creative process, and then more like market intelligence, just allowing people to be able to take the right steps and before entering the market. But then we work in partnership with Blue Global, which is a sister company, and so which isn't my company, that is a partner's company. So we work together to help. So Bloop is like the business arm of it, the tech arm of it, where all the applications, websites, business consulting, and that. So my exposure to that allowed me to be able to build my business acumen, which is something that I'll get to early on, because then once I met my partner and we came together, me and a couple of friends, we came together, we did this together, we partnered with Bloop as well. So Bloop is registered in the UK and in the USA currently. Loudspeaker is registered in Ghana. And so once we did that, we're able to come together and build this business, which wasn't easy in the beginning stages. Very, very difficult, extremely difficult. But once we wrapped our head around the business acumen, the thing that helped me the most was that I met my partner is a powerhouse of business. He's called Edison Ade. I don't know if you know Edison Ade. He's a powerhouse. He was a former what's the code? FI director in Ghana. Yes, and he's a powerhouse with business. When it comes to business, he understands things thoroughly, and he's been the guiding force naturally throughout the whole process. And I don't think my whole knowledge of business and technology has come a lot from them, the guidance and how I've been able to navigate, throughout the whole process. Because then after doing the whole design and coming to run a business, it was a different ballgame altogether. It wasn't design any longer. It was more of understanding how to run a business and merging it with technology, and which is something that I find that is missing in the Ghanaian market, or maybe globally, because they are usually tech companies, but they aren't tech companies that actually understand business, which is a real problem, because then you want to be able to have business knowledge and also have tech knowledge and understand how that business knowledge and that technology connect, because it's not enough to just have a tech understanding.
Have a solution, right? You have to be able to actually get it to the market, right? And that's really where the business acumen comes in. And you spoke a little bit about some of the things that really helped you. And I want to talk a little bit about that, just some of the resources and inspirations you leaned on as you were looking into transitioning from working in an economics role to moving into an IT-led entrepreneurial role, right? Because it's really a business you created in a little bit of a new sphere. You mentioned Mr. Edison Adai, which I love, right? Because you know what I love about these type of things? Edison, is sitting in his home somewhere, maybe just done with lunch, having a tea, jumping off a call. And he doesn't realize that something that he did for you, or the inspiration he provided you years ago, right? You're sitting here with a totally different audience and you're bringing that up. And I think that's something that's super powerful. So just wanted to hear a little bit about some of the things that helped you along this journey when you really doubted yourself.
Okay, so there were a lot of times where I was really tired. I actually wanted to go out and just, go into the regular job world and work. But I had to remind myself all the time why I started out, which is something that is incredibly powerful. So on the side, apart from doing work, I write a lot on Medium. I share everything I know on Medium. And funny that you're asking this, I actually wrote an article on how to sustain motivation. And sometimes it's very difficult to sustain motivation. We know that motivation isn't everything, because then you don't just motivate yourself and not do anything about it. You actually have to put in the work. But how do you stay motivated even when you're putting in the work? Sometimes you're being disciplined, you're trying to do the work, but how do you stay motivated? And how do you keep going when you're tired? And there are a lot of factors around it, trying to remember why you began in the first place. And sometimes discipline or consistency actually builds back the motivation. So it's a reverse thing. When you're consistent with your work, you actually build motivation. So motivation in itself isn't just, maybe watching some fancy video on how you can be successful in this number of years, or becoming the next billionaire or something like that. But it's actually doing the work. And when you are consistent while you're tired, sometimes even in the fear of the uncertainty, you actually keep going. And when you realize that when you're doing things, even sometimes when you're afraid, there really isn't anything else. Like, it can only get better from there. And so sometimes just with that mindset, it makes you stronger, or it just motivates you to do more, because sometimes truly you need to do something afraid, and that's just okay. That's just a fact of life.
Wow. So I have read some of your writing. I'm a little bit of a girl fan. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a little bit of a fan of yours, Karis. And I didn't know too much about you until this whole Women's Day thing came up. But listen, this month has introduced me to so many incredible women in our ecosystem. And I'm thrilled. And we're definitely going to do lunch after this. But there's something that you say a lot. I see you saying this quote quite a bit, and I want you to tell us in here what it really means, right? So technology with a touch of humanity. What does that mean to you?
Okay, so I think right now it's no news that AI is taking over the world, right? And a lot of people are panicking, oh, is AI going to take your job? But we forget that there's still human beings behind these things. Human beings build these things. And for AI to take over the world, or take over the job you're doing, is because you enabled it, or maybe because you just sat behind and watched it happen. If you keep improving yourself, the AI will just enable your work, make it faster, make you better, and help you expand. So for me, when I use the term technology with a touch of humanity, it's because behind every technology, behind any device, is still a human being. It's still actions. When I do my work with user experience research, I focus more on attitudinal and behavioral research. So when you look at take maybe a website or web application as an example. So we go through this whole process of when the client comes to us, hey, we want to build ABCD. Before we start building, we need to go through the target audience. We need to find the right audience for it. Maybe it's a party app, or maybe it's just an audio app, or maybe it's just, just something else. But you need to find the right target audience. Once you find that, you begin to realize that the type of audience would determine the type of look and feel you're going to build, or maybe the kind of look and feel your app or products is going to look like. Now, based on the data and the research around it, the UI designer picks it up and goes to build. Okay, that's the whole UI design, the whole feel of it. We go back to the drawing board. Now, the wireframe is just put in live mode. Now, we test it out and see, oh, does this feature work? Because maybe when you test a feature, you realize that it's too long a process. Maybe the user would decide that they're not going to, use that particular feature because it's, it takes long for me to get the value. And bear in mind that people are coming there just because of the value they're going to get, and also because of the experience that they'll feel after using your products or service. So you're not just thinking about the tech involved or just building something. You're also thinking about the human being, the behavior, the patterns, the attitudes to it. And there's one thing with people actually liking something, is actually another thing when they're actually using your product. They're two different things altogether. So when you look at the attitudinal parts of it, you look at the response, like how people react to the look and feel of it. But when you look at behavioral, you look more around the actions they take on your app or on your site. And that applies more with SaaS products.
Okay. And I'm going to jump in there because I think you've said a lot of really interesting things. And I'm really going to pick on the point you made about, this whole fear of kind of AI and technology, like taking over everyday life, right? But we've lived with technology forever, right? Like a sewing machine is a technology. And at the end of the day, right, the seamstresses at that time who learned how to use that technology were able to excel, right, above people who didn't. So I really just love that encouragement for us to not be, I guess, afraid or intimidated by all these terms that are flying around the place, but really be empowered to learn and be part of this revolution that's happening. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about just impact, right? Because I can see that a lot of your work is impact driven, right? I think everyone listening to you can hear that. And I just want to talk a little bit about more how that developed for you as a person, and what advice you would give to us on this call to be more impact focused, right, as we're building out our careers. And I'm also going to just announce to anyone else on the call, if you do have a question for Karis, you can go ahead and drop this right now in the chat, and I'll take that question for her. But please, can you just talk to us a little bit about impact?
All right. Thank you so much, Melissa. So for me, everything I've done has been from a place of impact. I can pinpoint some reasons or motivations. I mean, it's nice to have a good life, and I mean, the money is important, but it's also really important to want to do some good. And when you look around you, you realize that there are so many things that have not been done, or so many problems that we face in society. Case in point, look at Ghana as an example. Look at our transportation system. Look at public transport as an example. Look at taxis. Before Uber and Bolt came into the system, a taxi driver could literally just drop you out of nowhere and tell you he won't go again just because he didn't feel like it, But then when all these systems came about, now the taxis are actually realizing that, hey, there could be a measure to things. And so things can be better. And so for me, I realized that everything that we do, we need to look at things from an improvement standpoint. It actually reflects back on us. If we try to impact society or trying to impact the next person around us, what will begin to happen is that we'll realize that it will just reflect back on us, and we'll be able to see the world in a better light. Because trust me, Africa is full of opportunities. And I feel like it's just a continent where a lot of possibilities can come out of. If everybody sitting in Ghana or sitting in Africa in a country can just pick a problem and try and solve it, yes, it will be difficult. And sometimes we get things wrong. But then if you can just pick something and try and solve it, just give yourself 5 or 10 years down the line, you would actually do realize that you will become a household name for something, whether you believe it or not, just by being consistent. And which is an opportunity that people need to try and understand, that there is actually a real gold mine here, and the real gold mine is us as human beings in Africa, and which is something we need to build. We're not, the West is not, they're not better than us, and neither are we better than them. So what is stopping us from being more, exploring possibilities? And sometimes it's okay to make mistakes. If somebody starts something and failed at it or didn't do well at it, it gives someone a footstool or a stepping stone to actually improve upon it. But if we do not make that mistake, how would we know what not to do in the future? You see, so these things are really critical. And for me, my impact has practically stemmed from my upbringing and the things I was exposed to as a young girl. Even though I lost my parents early on in life, I was exposed. My mom wasn't well at some point, and so I had to do a lot of things at a really tender age that propelled me or put me in a position where I had to act even at a young age. And so for me, I feel like everyone has an opportunity to actually give of their best and be everything that they've been called to be, and everything that they've been born to be. And there's nothing really new under the sun. Human behavior is repetitive throughout time. And so if there's something that you want to do, like, you don't have to be so afraid about what could go wrong, because people do not really change in essence in terms of how they behave and their patterns. But what will actually change is what you do about your situation. Are you going to deteriorate, or you want to improve? You want to, and even if you fail, after failure, there really isn't anything else after failing.
The only other way is up. When
yes, the only other way is up.
You can only get up.
Exactly. So really,
wow, so
like,
this is incredible. And I am going to begin to wrap us up, unfortunately. I know you ladies are having an amazing time, and a few gentlemen, I see some gentlemen over there in the audience, and I like it. I'm going to start wrapping us up just in the interest of time. I know a lot of you have taken time out of your day for this session, and we really appreciate it. We will be displaying the results of the poll in just a moment, but I really want us to wrap up, Karis, with just a word of advice, right? So there may be a young lady or a young gentleman in our audience who is sitting in an office as he speaks in the economics department thinking, how do I break out of this? Like, how do I get into tech? Like, maybe I want to start my own business. What one piece of advice, right, would you give us, right, in a very brief way on this call, if we do want to make that change?
Thank you very much, Melissa. So for me, one piece of advice that I'll give to anyone trying to transition is bet on yourself. That is the one advice I'll give you. Bet on yourself, because that is one thing that I think is unshakable. Abna and the other ladies on the other call made some really valid points around improving yourself all the time, transitioning from career to career, knowing your worth and all of those things. But it's not enough to just go to work and come back home. It's not enough to just move from one place to the other. You need to improve yourself, which is something that people don't take seriously, but it's critical to our development, especially because the world is changing at a rapid rate. And if you're not able to catch up, you'll technically be behind. Just bet on yourself. Know that whatever it is that you want to do, bet on yourself. You are the only one that can make the change happen the way you want it to. And you will be satisfied with the results or pleased with it when you actually look back, and no one will actually do that for you. You would have people who will support you, yes, but you need to make that decision yourself. And you need to make the effort to improve on yourself.
On yourself. Wow, Karis, I mean, I must say this has been amazing. Like, I have so many sound bites. I think bet on yourself is like the mic drop. You talked really about just the fact that we are the gold and focusing on that and just knowing your why, right? Like, stick to why you started. Incredible. I think I speak on behalf of the entire team over here at MEST and the panelists that came before, as well as the audience, and just thanking you for your expertise. We're definitely going to be watching your career as you continue to do incredible things. We have shared the contact of Karis and all of our other panelists in the chat. I want to say a quick thank you again to everyone who joined us today, and a big shout out to the entire team at MEST who helped put this session together. It's been amazing. Thank you all so much, and we look forward to seeing you at the next event.
Thank you, Melissa.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much, Melissa. Wow, 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 wow. Oh my gosh. Like today, I'm over the moon. Lots of gems have been shared. I don't know about you, but for me, I've taken up a lot. It's just such a shame that I was moderating the panel session. If I was to write notes, my notebook would have been like so big. I'd have probably needed to replace my pen lots of times. It's been amazing.
Such a rich combo. This has been really great. Honestly, I wish we could go longer.
Girl, like when my time was up for the panel discussion, I wanted to ask for like maybe 20, 30 more minutes, maybe like 2 hours. But I'm like, nah.
She won't even start with 5 minutes. She's going straight for 20.
You know, but we want to also give a shout out to our audience who have stuck with us. It's been an hour and 30 minutes, if not a little longer, of you listening to us, of you learning. We wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for you. So wherever you are, just give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much. The MEST community is super excited to have you with us. Stay tuned. We have a lot more community engagements coming up in the upcoming months. If you are not subscribed to our newsletter, please subscribe via our website and you just stay updated on everything that we're doing. Thank you once again for joining us and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Bye.